Stay.
Assalamualaikum. Good morning, everybody. Okay. Morning, Dr. Arni. Okay. Right. Alhamdulillah, today, this morning, we have another webinar session, organized by the Postgraduate Office from the Hotel Tourism Management. So today, we have one special webinar on a special topic. The topic will be on mixed methodology research design, and this webinar will be delivered by our in-house lecturer, Dr. Arni. Dr. Arni is a senior lecturer from this faculty, and she's from the tourism department. So today she will share some of her knowledge, in research design, specifically on mixed methodology research. Okay, so this session will be around 45 minutes to 1 hour lah, Dr. Arni. So after her sharing session, later on, Dr. Arni will answer questions. If you have any questions, you can ask questions and put your questions in the chat box. Later at the end of session, maybe Dr. Arni or myself will read the questions so that she will answer all the questions. Okay. So without further delay, I will pass over the session to Dr. Arni. Dr. Arni, silakan. Thank you, Doctor.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me clear. Okay, loud and clear. Okay, I'll just jump into what I'm supposed to do today. Okay, thank you. First of all, thank you to the postgraduate office for the opportunity given to me today. Hopefully, it will be beneficial for the students. Okay, I'll start sharing my presentation. Can you see? Because I
Yes.
cannot. Yes. Oh, okay, good. All right. Okay, let me. Um, okay, you can still see me, right? All right. Okay. So today I've been given this title by the postgraduate office. I'm delighted to share what I know. I like to make a disclaimer. I'm not an expert in probably research methodology. But however, having gone through the process, I think I can share some insights. Okay, and some insights into today's topic is on mixed methodology. Research design. Okay. So this is my presentation outline. I try to keep within 45 to 50 minutes as given to me. Okay, let's go through to straight to what is mixed methodology or mixed method, people call it. All right. So I assume that everyone here are basically a postgraduate students, so you have gone through your research methodology classes. Okay, so you have acquired knowledge on what is quantitative and what is qualitative approach in research. Sorry. So traditionally, research has been quantitative in nature because it provides measures of parameter of interest. Then came in the era of qualitative research, basically to help further understood certain phenomena. So then come this era where people combine qualitative and quantitative. So the concept of combining.
Yep. Dr. Arni, your slide is not moving, Doctor.
But it's introduction, is it? No.
No, it's on the first page on your phone.
Okay.
Now you are on the introduction page.
I just now I share it. Is it okay if I just use this one instead of sharing it? Because I think might be because of sharing it.
Oh, okay, sure.
Okay, boleh ya? Okay, alright. Okay, continuing. Alright, so and then the era of combining research, both qualitative and quantitative, or people call it mixed methodology. Okay, so what is mixed methodology? Basically, it contains the element of both quantitative and qualitative collection or data collection analysis in one study. And then mixed method research believe it can provide a more comprehensive understanding of a research question. Mixed method is actually akin, sort of like a sister to a multi-method. Maybe we have not really familiar what is multi-method, but multi-method is where you combine either numerous of qualitative approaches or various quantitative approaches in one study. So mixed method is akin to that multi-method. And basically in research, in mixed methodology research, we as a researcher, you collects or you investigate, you collect data, you analyze data, you integrate the findings, and you draw inferences using both methods. Okay. Okay. So this is okay. So this is for major mixed method design. I will not be surprised if you do your own your own desk research. When you Google, you are going to find tons of different designs for mixed method, all called mixed method design. But I would like, just for the sake of this particular short presentation, I will only I would say just introduce to you the four major ones. Okay, so the four major ones, we have triangulation. Maybe you have heard about the word triangulation. So triangulation is where you have quantitative, qualitative done almost simultaneously, and then you mix the results, you merge, either you compare, you interrelate, or you validate. And then you come into the final conclusion or interpretation, the discussion part of it. And generally in triangulation design, you are going to have your discussion will be emphasizing on both data equally. All right. Then we have explanatory design. Explanatory design is where you begin with a quantitative data collection. So you start with quantitative, you analyze, you come with the results. Then we come to the point where you mix or you integrate. The quantitative results lead to another where you need a further clarification from what you have from quantitative results. Then this further clarification is where you begin your qualitative phase. So you will do your data collection qualitatively, analysis and results, and you're going to interpret again, meaning at the end of your study or your research, and you're going to interpret. And generally for explanatory design, discussion or the major component is actually the quantitative results. Qualitative was there to explain and elaborate. And then the third one is exploratory. So it's vice versa from explanatory. Exploratory is where you begin with qualitative. You collect your data, you do analyze, you come with the results. And usually in exploratory design, this where the data or the findings from your qualitative will fit into your quantitative. So you most likely to build an instrument, a theory based on the qualitative results, and you're going to test that quantitatively. So you're going to do your quantitative phase, data collection, analysis, results, and so on. And you are going to do your interpretation as usual, come up with the discussion, findings and everything. And generally in exploratory design, the qualitative emphasizing are given on the qualitative. And quantitative is basically to test, just to test what you have come up with from your qualitative. And then we have what we call embedded design. So embedded design is where you have one set of data, maybe a quantitative, but you have a section of a qualitative in that. Meaning to say that you maybe through the development of the proposals, you know that you're going to use largely you have the quantitative part of it. However, there are certain things that need to be answered that are not available, and you need to answer that. So you embed the section of this qualitative into the one data set, and then you're going to do the same thing. All right, mixing qualitative. Basically, in embedded design, it can be either quantitative as main and the qualitative can be complementary, or the other way around. And then you're going to mix them, and then basically qualitative in this example, say the qualitative is complementary or secondary, so-called. So the qualitative data enhance the quantitative results, and you come up with the interpretation. Eventually, in this particular design, it's on whatever the core element or the core component of the design is, either quantitative or qualitative, that will be emphasizing on when you do your interpretation. All right, why we need mixed methodology? So one might ask, at what point of time that you think you need a mixed methodology? So one, I would say credibility. Okay, and then a lot of researchers also agrees. Credibility means that by using both methods, you can improve the appropriateness of your research finding. Okay. Second is context. Context means that the blend of mixed methodology where you have quali and quanti. So qualitative is basically justified where the qualitative part provides the contextual understanding, maybe alongside give you some generalizable variables or findings, which eventually from there you test using quantitative. So that is in terms of context. The third one is illustration. Illustration means that mixed methodology is used to explain quantitative, usually quantitative data. as we know, quantitative data or quantitative finding can be dry. It's a dry quote unquote dry, meaning to say it's just numbers, those kind of thing, very clean findings. But you need something to elaborate more. You have to embed some richness maybe to the explanation and interpretation. So you need that. So there's a need for mixed methodology for illustration purposes. The fourth one is confirm and discover. So confirm and discover is basically where you construct your hypothesis, you come up with from the qualitative data, and you test that in quantitatively. So that is to confirm from qualitative, and you test that to discover in quantitative. And last one is diversity in views. Why we say diversity in views? Because through mixed methodology, sometimes there is a need for you to incorporate perspective from different, from two, especially from researchers and maybe from participants. So you need to have that perspective. In that sense, you are using mixed methodology where you will use qualitative to find similarities between every every parties that should be considered in your research, and then you use quantitative to identify relationship. So because you need to have different views, you can have just one respondent. You have to maybe multi groups of respondents, right? So there's possibility that you probably need to have mixed methodology. All right. So move on to next one. Say you already know that, okay, I want to do mixed methodology. I think my research needs a mixed methodology. What are the considerations? So this is going to get a little bit technical. All right. So what is the consideration if you eventually will choose to do mixed methodology? First is theoretical drives. Okay. Like any other kind of research design approach, mixed methodology also have theoretical drives. So basically, in mixed methodology, it's slightly unique in a sense that you have to know there are two components in theoretical drives for mixed methodology. Either you are qualitative dominant, or are you quantitative dominant, or you can also be of equal qualitative, quantitative continuum. So if you are qualitative dominant, meaning the large part, that should be the focal point of, or the focus, or the central to the whole research process, qualitative dominant. Likewise, if it's quantitative dominant, okay, and quantitative is where sometimes we say 50-50, it's of equal for your research. So you have to know, are you qualitative dominant, are you quantitative dominant, or are you qualitative quantitative continuum? And then come the timings. Okay, the timings means that this basically refers to when both quantitative and qualitative components of the study is carried out. Is it simultaneity? Okay, and second one is how in terms of dependence. Simultaneity is where there are two things in simultaneity. Okay, one is, are you qual plus quant, that is concurrent, or are you qual quant, that is sequential. So in sequential, one component takes place before the other, meaning qual first and then quant. Okay, meaning you done your qualitative, you come with results, and then you do your quant. That is sequential. And okay, qual plus quant is concurrent, where both research component, meaning both components of qualitative and quantitative, can implemented almost simultaneously, almost at the same time. So that is, you have to consider, are you going to be qual quant, or are you going to be qual plus quant? So whichever that fits into what you're going to study. The second thing about timings is dependence. There are two things also in dependence. Are you independent or you dependent? Dependent is where data analysis from the first component determine the fulfillment of the second component, meaning the second one depends on the first one. See, that is dependent. Independent is where the implementation of data is contingent, meaning on you are not independent of the other one. Okay, so that is also you need to consider. Are you going to be dependent or are you going to be interdependent? Independent, okay? So generally, generally, when I say generally, is basically as you read, you can find a lot of people say this, but it is actually not always the case. Why I say that? Because simultaneity and dependence should be treated as two different components. Okay. Generally, however, I would say generally, sequential is considered dependent, and concurrent is independent. Okay, like I said, generally. However, it should always be treated as two things that different. Sometimes to fit into your research, objective, maybe to fit into your other conditions surrounding the whole thing about conducting research, you need probably have to be, mine will have to be sequential, but independent, so those kind of things. But that is definitely relies on you as a researcher. The third consideration is point of integration. So point of integration basically is any point in the whole process where two or more of the research components are mixed. Meaning to say, you need to know where in your research that you integrate qual and quant. Okay, so basically there are theory said there are many ways of point of integration, but I just listed here 4. The conceptualization stage, meaning at the context when you are preparing or when you are the base of the whole thing, that is the conceptualization stage in the context. Okay, and then you can also have a point of integration in the methodological stage. I think this is quite given it to us, a methodological stage, meaning at the point where you collect your data, the data collection. And then the analytical experimental stage, this is when you analyze. Okay, when you do your analyzation, okay, there are some point of integration, qualitative and quantitative. And then the inferential stage. Inferential stage is where you make conclusion, discussion, and whatnot. So that is a point of integration. So depends on how many research objective or research question you're going to answer. All right, so maybe you have to have 1 or 2 point of integration in order to meet your research. And then basically the design. So the design, it fits the design mentioned. Okay, as previous mentioned. Okay, so the design you choose, of course, it has to fit into your research requirement. Meaning, what do you want to study? Who are your respondents? I mean, these are only 4, but believe me, taking from people, taking from a person who actually done that, the considerations is a lot. You have to consider many things. Timing, as we know, as we might anticipate, a qual and quant, when you do 2 phases of studies, or when you have 2 approaches in one study, one thing has to be considered is time. Your own time, your time management, because you have to, of course, you are here as a student, you have to finish at a certain time. So I'm not trying to demotivate you or not if you think is the way for you. But that is one thing that you need to consider in terms of time management. Okay, so those are 4 basically theoretical drives, timings, point of integration, and the design. Okay, enough about the theory. So let me share about what I did. Okay, so this is, I think, much more, I would say, relatable because now you are students. I was a student at one point of time. So this is what I did for my, from my own experience doing a mixed methodology design for a PhD research. So I did my research some time ago. All right, so the issues, I just give a very brief one. The thorough investigation and understanding on public participation practices, because I did my research on protected areas in Malaysia. So looking into local community participation. Okay, so there is close to none actually recorded on that in Malaysia. So a thorough investigation and understanding on the public participation practices was needed in order before I can formulate factors that can actually enhance public participation in Malaysia. So that was the whole thing. So I just have it in one sentence like that. So my research context, I've choose one area of protected areas in Malaysia, and the setting was NECC. NECC is National Elephant Conservation Centre. So I choose that as my case study. All right. So in my research context, I have for my I have 5 RQs. Eventually draws into 4 ROs. So 4 ROs, I have 2 ROs will need to be answered qualitatively, and 2 ROs need to be answered quantitatively. So theoretical drive, mine actually because my main was to come up with the factors. My main was to come up with the dimension. So it was quantitative dominant. And the timings, it was sequential dependent. So it was first quali, then quantitative. So it's sequential dependent, and point of integration was at the level of results, where it is basically in terms of methodological stage. Okay, so in terms of sample, all right, so it was one kind of experience to come up with a sample itself, not even considered at that point of time about conducting it, but to come up with a sample. Okay, the first phase, as for my case, I used a Delphi technique. Some of you might heard of it, some of you might have not, but Delphi technique is one technique in qualitative research. So first phase, I choose to employ Delphi technique. I end up with 29 experts, which they are mainly academicians and relevant organizations in that representing or have interest in protected areas in Malaysia. So those are my Delphi. So that is my qual. Okay, so that is my qual. So I have Delphi technique, 29 experts. Okay, and then the second phase, I conduct a field survey. So a field survey where as I mentioned, the setting is NECC. So I have to go not only NECC because my research was about local community. So I have to definitely not NECC per se, but areas surrounding. I go, I think, about up to 10 to 15 kilos, maybe up to 20 kilos, all the villages surrounding NECC. So local community population, after done we go through the sample, the population techniques and so on, sampling technique and so on. So it was a local community population. I have 376 respondents from 4 categories of villages, because they are basically 4 main villages surrounding NECC, and I have to get everyone. Okay, everyone. I have to get a sample from those kind of village. So there are 376 respondents from 4 categories of villages. I have Malay village, Chinese village, Felder settlements, and the Orang Asli in areas surrounding NECC. Okay, so and also in the second phase field survey, I also distribute the questionnaire to the key actors populations. So there are basically 37 respondents representing 3 bodies of NECC, of the interest of NECC. So those are basically my my quantitative phase. Okay, all right. The data collection process, first phase, like I said, the Delphi technique. It took me about 6 months to complete. Because but Delphi technique is another thing. If you're interested, you really have to maybe take classes or learn about Delphi technique. But Delphi technique involves iterations or cycles. All right. So first phase of Delphi technique, I completed that in 6 months. Involved 3 iterations. And the second phase of the data collection process, the field survey itself, I completed about in more or less 3 months plus 3 months. 3 months to complete. Me as the principal investigator, and I have to engage with enumerators because there's no way I'm going to finish with my own self, so I have to engage with 3 enumerators. They are, I think, students as well. Students. So 4 of us. It took us 3 months to finish all the 4 villages to get to the number that I wanted. Okay. All right. So and then the analysis. So for Delphi technique, like any other qualitative, maybe you have learned about qualitative in research in classes and in your research methodology class. So the analysis for Delphi technique, basically for qualitative, I think you are quite familiar with thematic. Now people have used, during my time, those days, not really familiar with software. Okay, so we use the original thematic analysis. Learn about thematic analysis. So from thematic analysis, because I have our first research objective, second research objective was to answer using qual. So the first was thematic analysis, and then the beauty of Delphi technique is because at some point you can use SPSS. Okay, once you have passed the first iterations or the first cycle, second cycle, third cycle, fourth cycle, some people even up to 7 or 8 cycles for Delphi technique. Okay, but mine was quite fortunate. I only have to go through 3 cycles. So thematic, I can use measures of central meaning mean mode for Delphi technique, also standard deviation, and also Kendall W and Kruskal-Wallis to check on the to check on the variance between the data. And then field survey, I think I use EFA and MLR because the objective was actually to come up with the model parameter, the model for the dimension. So eventually I use Man Whitney, EFA and MLR for the analysis. So there are 2 things. If you're on board with mixed method, you have to learn you have to learn how to do it qualitatively. And some of you here might already in your analysis part, some of you might still in your proposal writing. But one thing to anticipate is not only, like I said, the process of selecting samples, because you have to fit into those 2 requirements of the approaches, right? But analysis same goes. You have to know for qualitative what would I use, what analysis, and you have to at some point master or know how to operate those analysis. And at the same time, you also need to learn quantitatively, meaning quantitative analysis, something, anything that will fit into your study. So you have to learn quali and you have to learn quanti. So that is one thing that I think good for you to anticipate earlier if you want to choose mixed methodology. Okay, so the design, from my experience, the design mine is actually exploratory. Okay, because I began with qual and I developed my instrument from qual and then I test it in quant. Okay, so Delphi technique, I come up with the important attributes. Okay, basically to answer 1 and 2, and then that is the initial result, which cannot be generalized yet. So I have to test that into quant in the field survey meaning. So field survey, to test the initial results under local settings, and basically to generate what was my objective main was actually to come up with a model, to come up with a dimension, and I have to test that. So I am generating, I generate model parameters or predictors for the public participation practices in protected areas for Malaysia. So those are the design, exploratory by nature. Okay, so I hope that actually this is the end of it. Okay, but I hope that if from my experience, let's just talk out of. But from my experience doing mixed methodology, okay, it's not easy, but to me it's satisfying in another sense. Satisfying in the sense because I think I have acquired. Probably I'm not an expert in one. Maybe I can't call myself expert in quali, or I cannot call myself expert in quanti because I did not really delve into one and really been expert into that. But by doing mixed methodology, I think it provides some sort of satisfying to me that I know that is one thing, the beauty of research, where you can really look something deeply or in depth, right? And of course, when you do qual, you involve, I think, I would say, doing qualitative, you are more, I would say, close to your study or to your sample, to your respondents. Doesn't matter what technique you want to use, either interviews, focus groups, or whatnot, and that's the beauty of it. And then from there you come up with the results and you test that just to test that so that it can be generalized, so that it can be used further and enhanced further by other researchers. So I think the whole thing is satisfying in a sense that I have gone through the process. I learned the hard way. I learned the beauty of it, and I think in my here today sharing with you, maybe if you think it is something that will enhance your finding, you think that you will eventually put something new, new knowledge that you think can only be retrieved by doing MM. So I would probably strongly suggest you to consider doing MM. Okay, I think with that I end my presentation, Dr. Mazlina. Sekejap
I have Arni. Gani boleh, can you just stop sharing?
Okay. Dah.
You can see the
Tak jumpa.
Okay. Alright. Okay, thank you again, Dr. Arni, for some of from her experience, sharing from her experience, conducting mixed method methodology research in doing her PhD study back then lah. Okay, so we will to start off the question answer sessions lah, Dr. Arni, Okay, if you have any questions, you are all free to ask questions to Dr. Arni. Dr. Arni, insyaAllah Dr. Arni will answer all your questions, But I will read one question from the chat. Okay, Dr. Arni, from the chat, are you accessible with the chat, Dr. Arni?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Which is better? Okay, I never use Atlas TI. I mean, when I did my research, like I said just now, when I did my PhD at that point of time, I think maybe the software was there. It's just that we were really in the unknown of a software at that point of time. So I resorted into thematic, the common ways of doing thematic analysis. But now there are this software that help you to organize your data, which is good, I think. Okay, so if you ask me whether Atlas TI or NVivo, I never use Atlas TI. I have some, I mean, not to say some experience, but I did go through a little bit about NVivo. I think if you ask me, I might be a little bit biased because I never use Atlas TI, but I think NVivo is quite easy. It's of course it's just because those are just software. They are just there to organize, help you to organize the data. To construct. Not to say to construct. To just maybe code it. Come up with it. But the rest is actually you as a researcher. You as a researcher that need to give names to your variables. You are the one that need to find what are these things called. Those are you. Those are not the software. So if you ask me, I might be biased. I've used NVivo, never used Atlas TI. I think NVivo is, to me, it's friendly to learn. Okay, all right. Hope that answered the question.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions that all of you wanted to ask, Dr. Arni? Actually, those are doing the mixed method analysis, yeah? You can ask now lah, Dr. Arni is here.
Yeah. Probably, okay. I want to cakap probably. Is that requirement? No. I don't think so. Is it requirement? No.
It's not a requirement. You can opt to do a fully quantitative or fully qualitative, or you can opt for mixed method. No problem.
Yeah, no problem. It's not a requirement, but if I may add, if you are doing a PhD, all right, if it's enough by one method, fine. But if you think that you want to include more or add more or enhance more, probably consider a qualitative part. Same goes. If you think qualitative is enough, fine, it's enough. No worries.
Doctor, I have a question about the Delphi method. Is more appropriate to use interviews or questionnaires?
Okay, all right. Traditionally, okay, this is also what my co-supervisors taught me, okay, many years ago. Okay, traditionally, Delphi method, you have to give, because Delphi method is where one thing beauty about Delphi method is that you don't have to have all these people, like say 29, like my case, my case, 29 of them. I don't have to have them in one place in one point of time. That's the beauty of Delphi method. As compared to, say, focus group. Focus group, you have to have everyone at the same place, right? Because then only you can do your focus group, FG. Or interviews, you have to go and see them, right? Okay, but the beauty of Delphi method is they can be anywhere and you can have any kind of platform. Some might want you to meet them personally. Some might just, they are too busy. They are big boss in some organization. They don't have time for you, but you can just send them what you want them to write or what you want them, the input that you require from them. So you just send that. Like in my case, let me share. 29 of them. So I have to deal with 29 people, various organizations. I end up, first phase, of course, traditionally it has to be like a blank, no answers. You're only posing questions and they are going to write their answers. Those days they are going to write. They write it and they reply to me. And from there, I theme them. I start my thematic analysis. Second, I come up with slightly more structured, so more structured where they can either pick or they can write a new one or they can just create the whole thing and no, I don't think this, I think like this. So That is what we call cycles in Delphi method. Until you reach consensus. How to reach consensus for Delphi method, another beauty of it is you can get those data be analyzed using SPSS to come with the consensus. That is what I use for that is why I use Kruskal-Wallis for that. Okay, so that, yeah, so I hope that answers the question. All right. But it's not. I know Lee here is actually my supervisor PhD, my student. So she is considering to do Delphi method, which I am all bought on because I think it's might be appropriate for her study. All right. Okay. Assalamualaikum. I'm still new. Just want to know what is the common ratio. Is that 50? Oh, okay, okay. Siapa tu? Anal. Okay, it's like this. Just now, I think I have presented or have briefed you just now, but quite brief. There is no ratio so-called. Either 50 that it has to be equally between the two. No. You can be qualitative dominant, you can be quantitative dominant, or you can be equal. So where are you? Are you qual? You like in my case, I would say I am quantitative dominant because the reason why of the whole thing is to come up with the factors, which was close to, like I said, close to none at that point of time. So that was the main thing. And in order to come up with dimensions of factors or attributes, it has to be tested, right? You cannot simply say it comes from these people saying and that is the factor. No, that cannot be like that. So I come up with the initial result and I test to come up with the final result. So that's why I said mine was quantitative dominant, even though I have qual-quant, which is sequential. All right, so there is no ratio, Anna. Only that you have to know which is dominant. Sometimes there are people I know that did qual dominant. The whole thing is about interviews, only quantitatively, a little bit, maybe a very small research at the end, maybe some very simple survey at the end to maybe enhance or maybe just to get some values out of whatever that they have come up from the qualitative findings. Hope that answers the question.
There's another one question that you missed, Dr. Arni. What is the saturation point in in-depth interview?
Oh, kita tak buat. Okay, if you ask me in-depth interviews, saturation is probably when the answers are more or less the same. You are getting the same across maybe everyone that you have interviewed. I have not done interviewed in my research, in my PhD. When I did my my PhD, it was not an interview, it was a Delphi method. It's slightly different. But saturation was still there, meaning the moment, but my saturation, like I said, my saturation for Delphi method, saturation is when SPSS shown consensus is there. That is saturation for Delphi method. So when you do your Delphi, but just to add on that, Delphi method saturation is when consensus achieve certain value. Okay, for in-depth interview, I think saturation is when the answers is merely more or less the same, or maybe you are getting the same similar answers across everyone who you interviewed. That could be the saturation point, because when you interview, you are probing questions that you get, right, from say 5 or 10 people. So until you arrive that more or less nothing new is emerging anymore. So that is saturation, I think, for in-depth interview. Okay. All right. All right. Thank you. Is there any more?
Any more question?
Okay. No. But okay, I think if there is no more question, probably just I want to give some motivation. Probably if that is allowed, Dr. Mazlina. Okay. I'm not sure in what stage you are now in your research journey. Maybe some are very at the beginning, some are already there at the finishing line. All right. So especially for mixed methodology, what I learned through my years in doing PhD. Okay, mixed methodology, make sure that you acquired a considerable knowledge on both. Because when you opt to do a mixed methodology, you are basically saying that you have knowledge on both. Don't meaning to say that qualitative, you need to have a good grasp on qualitative. Also, you have to have a good grasp on the quantitative part of it. So doesn't matter where you are. If you are now doing MM, good choice, I think. All right, coming from people who are doing MM. But other than that, I think doesn't matter what research approach is. Just you to us, everyone here, I think is the matter of reaching to the finishing line. That is the most important thing. Okay, all right.
Thank you, Doctor.
All right.
All right, thank you. Okay, is there any other last questions that you want to ask, Dr. Arni? Tak ada, eh? Okay, so kalau tak ada, okay, so we from the postgrad office would like to thank Dr. Arni for her time with us today to share some of her insights, experience that she undergo when she did her PhD doing the mixed method research. Thank you so much, Dr. Arni. Okay. And all of you, the rest, you can sign in or log into the attendance form that Puan Masira has put in the chat, for you to get your certificate. Okay, so we have another one more webinar to go, before the end of the session. So we will get you posted lah, Okay, thank you all. Again, thank you all for joining the session for today's session. So I see you all from time to time. Thank you so much. Assalamualaikum.
Doktor, kita ambil gambar dulu boleh?
Oh, nak ambil gambar Dr. ni. Sorry. Okay, all of you with cameras, can you switch on the camera so that we can take photo for record?
Sekejap, Okay. Okay, ready? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you.
Thank you all. Assalamualaikum.
Bye. Goodbye, Doctor.
Okay, thank you, Doktor.